I heard it from the kitchen. They always thought I couldn't hear well from the kitchen. The sound of the television in the living room was supposed to cover everything. A loud booming game show where people shrieked over the price of laundry detergent. My son Michael loved those shows. He said they were relaxing. I never understood how noise could be relaxing. My late husband, James, used to say the world had gotten too loud for its own good. He was right. I was rinsing the good plates, the ones Susan only brought out for holidays that didn't involve me cooking. My plates, the ones I'd given her from my own wedding set, were in a box in her garage. Too old-fashioned, she'd said. Her smile was like a bandage on a wound, meant to cover something unpleasant. The water was hot on my hands, the steam rising to fog the window above the sink. Outside, the world was a blur of green lawn and sprinklers hissing in the late afternoon sun. Inside, the air conditioning hummed, a constant artificial chill that never quite left my bones. "It's just getting to be too much, Mike." Susan's voice sliced through the noise of the game show. It was sharp. A paring knife. I set a plate down in the suds. Very carefully. I made no sound. I have learned over 82 years how to make no sound. It is a skill a woman like me acquires. You learn to close doors without a click. You learn to walk on floorboards without a creak. You learn to exist in the background, a shadow in the corner of a well-lit room. You become a fixture, like the grandfather clock in the hall that no one hears ticking until it stops. "She almost fell again last week," Michael said. His voice was lower, heavier, like a stone rolling downhill. "The rug in her hallway. I keep telling her to get rid of it." I had not almost fallen. My foot had caught, that was all. A small stumble on the Persian runner James had bought for me in 1978. He loved the deep reds and blues in it. He said it was the color of a sunset over the ocean. I had caught myself on the wall. My balance is still good. My bones are old, but they are my own and they know how to hold me up. "It's not just the rug," Susan sighed. A theatrical sound. The kind of sigh she used when the grocery store was out of her favorite organic kale. "It's the forgetting." She left the stove on. Again, that was a lie. A clean, simple, breathtaking lie. I had been simmering a pot of oxtail. I turned it down to low the way I always do to let the meat get tender. She had come in, sniffed the air with her nose wrinkled, and turned it off completely. "This is a fire hazard, Hattie," she'd said, her voice dripping with the kind of pity that feels like acid. I had not forgotten. I was slow cooking. There is a difference. A world of difference. I stood at the sink, my hands submerged in the warm, soapy water. My knuckles ached. A familiar, dull throb that matched the rhythm of the clock in my own quiet house. Tick, tock. "And the house," Michael continued, his voice full of a weariness that felt performed for his wife's benefit. "It's too big for her. The upkeep, the stairs. My house. The one James and I bought with every penny we had saved. He'd worked 2 jobs. I had taken in laundry and sewing for the White families on the other side of town. We signed the papers at a small, cluttered desk, and the man didn't look either of us in the eye, but our hands were shaking with joy. James had carried me over the threshold. The wood of that threshold is worn smooth now, from half a century of comings and goings. My children's feet. My grandchildren's feet. My own. It is not a big house. It is a sturdy house. A brick house with 2 bedrooms and a porch where my gardenias bloom every June. Their scent is the sweetest thing I know. "I found a place," Susan said. Her voice dropped, becoming conspiratorial, slick. "Silver Maples. It's lovely. They have a garden club. Activities. She'd be safe there. We'd know she was being looked after." Silver Maples. The name sounded like a cough drop. I had seen the sign for it on the highway. A cheerful, soulless billboard with a smiling, silver-haired couple who did not look real. Their teeth were too white. Their joy was an advertisement. They were talking about a cage. A clean, well-lit, expensive cage with a garden club. My hands stopped moving in the water. The bubbles in the sink began to pop, one by one, in the growing silence. The game show had gone to a commercial. The only sounds were the hum of the refrigerator and the frantic beating of a bird against the kitchen window, trying to get in or get out. "I don't know Susie," Michael hedged. "She's so stubborn. Set in her ways, set in my ways." My ways were waking with the sun. My ways were a cup of chicory coffee, black and strong. My ways were reading the paper from front to back. My ways were tending my gardenias and listening to Mahalia Jackson on the radio on Sunday mornings. My ways were the quiet, steady rhythms of a life I had built with my own 2 hands. It's for her own good, Michael, Susan insisted, the paring knife again twisting. We can't be running over there every 5 minutes. You have your work. The kids have their lives. It's not fair to anyone. And what if she has a real fall? Who would find her? The unspoken words hung in the air. What if she becomes a burden? What if she becomes an inconvenience we can no longer manage? I heard the scrape of a chair. Michael was getting up. He was coming to the kitchen. I pulled my hands from the water, the skin wrinkled and pale. I reached for a dish towel, my movements slow, deliberate. I did not turn around. I focused on the small, embroidered bluebird on the corner of the towel. I dried each finger one by one. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice too loud, too cheerful. He put a hand on my shoulder. It felt heavy. An anchor. "You don't have to do that. Leave the dishes. Susan and I can get them." I did not look at him. I looked at my own reflection in the dark window pane. A ghost of a woman, framed by the bright, manicured lawn of her son's perfect life. Her face was a mask of calm. Her eyes were old. They had seen this moment coming for a long, long time. In countless small ways. In forgotten birthdays and conversations that stopped when she entered a room. In the way they spoke to her as if she were a child, or a piece of furniture that might break if handled too roughly. "I like doing the dishes," I said. My voice was even. It did not tremble. "It settles my mind," he squeezed my shoulder. A gesture that was meant to be affectionate but felt like a claim of ownership. "Okay, Mom. Don't overdo it," he walked away. The game show came back on louder than before. I stood there for another minute. I did not breathe. I simply listened to the sound of my life being dismantled in the next room, between the shrieks of contestants and the applause of a canned audience. The bird had stopped beating against the glass. It was gone. I finished the plates. I washed the silverware and the heavy glass bowl that had held the salad. I rinsed the sink and wiped down the counters until they shone under the recessed lighting. I left their kitchen cleaner than I had found it. It was a small final act of service. A closing of a door. When I was done, I took off the apron Susan had given me for Christmas. It was a crisp white thing with a slogan on it. "Queen of the Kitchen." I folded it neatly and left it on the counter. I walked through the living room. Michael and Susan were on the sofa, their faces bathed in the blue light of the television. They looked up as I passed. "You heading out, Hattie?" Susan asked, her smile bright and meaningless. "Yes," I said. "It's getting late." "Drive safe, Mom," Michael said, his eyes already back on the screen. "Call me when you get in." I did not say that I would. I just nodded. I walked out their front door and did not look back. The drive home was quiet. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of orange and deep purple, the colors of James's old rug. I kept my eyes on the road. My hands were steady on the wheel of my 10-year-old Buick. The car was sturdy, reliable. It had never failed me. When I got home, the house was cool and quiet. It smelled of lemon oil and old books and the faint sweet scent of gardenias from the porch. It smelled like me. It smelled like home. I did not turn on the lights. I walked through the familiar rooms in the twilight. My feet knew the way. I touched the back of James's armchair, the velvet worn smooth beneath my fingers. I traced the frame of a photograph on the mantel. It was my granddaughter Imani, Michael's daughter. She had my eyes. She was a serious child, a watchful child. She saw things. I went into my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The quilt my own grandmother had made was folded at the foot. 100 tiny squares of fabric, each one a piece of a dress or a shirt or a curtain from a life lived long ago. A map of my history. I sat there for a long time. The house grew dark around me. The only light was the pale moonlight filtering through the sheer curtains. The grandfather clock in the hall struck 9. Each chime was clear and resonant. It was not ticking anymore. It had stopped. I had not noticed when. I thought of silver maples. I thought of a room with no memories. A garden I had not planted. A life that was not my own, but one provided for me, managed for me. A safe place. A place to wait for the end. And in the quiet darkness of my own home, a decision settled over me. It was not a storm. It was not a fire. It was a slow, deep calm, like the stillness of water at the bottom of a well. They thought I was a burden, problem to be managed, a collection of risks and potential falls. They had forgotten that I was a person. They had forgotten whose house this was. They had forgotten whose money was in the bank, earned over a lifetime of hard work and careful saving. The inheritance they were already spending in their minds. The safety net they assumed would always be there for them after I was gone. After they had safely tucked me away. I stood up. My bones did not creak. My legs felt strong. I walked to the phone in the kitchen. I did not turn on the light. I knew the numbers by heart. I picked up the receiver and dialed. It rang twice. A sleepy voice answered. "Hello. Imani," I said. "It's Grandma Hattie. I'm sorry to call so late. Grandma? Is everything okay?" Her voice was instantly awake, sharp with concern. Real concern. Not the manufactured pity of her mother. "Everything," I said, and my own voice was clear and steady, "is about to be the next morning I woke before the sun. This was my habit. My rhythm. The world is quietest before dawn. You can hear yourself think. I did not make coffee. Instead I made tea. Strong black tea the way my mother used to make it. She called it her thinking tea. I added a slice of lemon and a spoonful of honey and carried the steaming mug to the kitchen table. The table was old. Oh, James had refinished it himself the year Michael was born. There were still faint scratches on the surface from years of homework, art projects, and hastily eaten breakfasts. A geography of a family. I sat and looked out the window at my backyard. The grass was damp with dew. A fat robin was pulling a worm from the earth with grim determination. I understood that robin. My phone was on the counter. It buzzed twice. A text message from Michael. "Morning, Mom. You get home okay?" Followed by another one a minute later. "Call me." I looked at the phone. It felt like a foreign object. A tether. I did not pick it up. I drank my tea. After the tea, I went to my bedroom and opened the closet. I pulled out the old metal box from the top shelf. It was heavy. It held all our important papers. The deed to the house. James's life insurance policy. Our marriage certificate. Birth certificates. Bank statements. I spread them out on the bed, on top of my grandmother's quilt. It was a life, documented in paper and ink. A life of thrift and planning. James had been a meticulous man. "You prepare for rain when the sun is shining, Hattie," he'd always said. The sun was shining. And a storm was coming. I found the name of the lawyer who had handled James's will. Mr. David Davies. A kind, quiet man with gentle eyes who had not rushed me when I cried in his office. I found his card. It was tucked inside the folder with the will. I picked up the phone in my bedroom and dialed his office. I got his secretary. I made an appointment for 11 o'clock that morning. I did not say what it was about. I simply said it was a personal matter regarding my estate. The word estate felt strange and powerful in my mouth. Then I got dressed. I chose my Sunday best. A navy blue dress with a matching jacket. My good pearls. The ones James gave me for our 25th anniversary. I put on stockings and my low-heeled black pumps. I was not dressing for my son. I was not dressing for a lawyer. I was dressing for myself. For Hattie Johnson. A woman with an estate. My phone buzzed again as I was heading for the door. A voicemail this time. I did not listen to it. I put the phone in my purse and silenced it. The silence was a relief. Mr. Davies's office smelled of old paper and leather. It was a comforting smell. A serious smell. He remembered me. His eyes were still kind. He did not ask about my son. He simply asked, "How can I help you, Mrs. Johnson?" I sat across the wide mahogany desk from him. I placed my hands on my purse in my lap. "I would like to revoke my son Michael's power of attorney," I said. The words came out clear and firm. They did not shake. Mr. Davies did not look surprised. He simply nodded, his pen poised over a yellow legal pad. "I see. And who would you like to designate in his place?" "No one," I said. "For now. I am perfectly capable of handling my own affairs." "Of course you are," he said, and I knew he meant it. He did not look at me with pity. He looked at me with respect. It was a feeling as reviving as a cool drink of water on a hot day. We went through the paperwork. He explained everything. I read every line before I signed. My signature was a little shaky, but it was strong. It was my name. My will. There is something else, I said when we were done with that. He leaned forward slightly. Yes. I want to sell my house for the first time. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. He recovered quickly. Are you certain, Mrs. Johnson? That house has been in your family for a long time. The house is bricks and wood, I said. My family is changing. I want to know my options, he told me. He explained about real estate agents and appraisals and capital gains. I listened. I absorbed the information. It was just business. It was just logistics. My heart was not involved in this part. I had already detached it. My final question was about my will. My current will leaves everything to my son, Michael, I said. The house, my savings, my investments. Everything. Yes, I have a copy here, he said, tapping a folder on his desk. I want to change it, I said. He waited. He did not prompt me. He let the silence sit. I am not sure yet what the new will should say, I told him. But I know what it will not say. It will not say my son's name, he just nodded. Take your time, Mrs. Johnson. Think on it. When you are ready, you call me. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in years. The air outside seemed brighter. The noise of the city traffic sounded like a symphony. I had taken the first step. I had taken back the pen. I was the one writing my story now. When I got home, I did not go inside right away. I walked around to the backyard. My roses were in bloom. Big, fragrant red ones that climbed the trellis James had built. I touched a velvety petal. It was so alive. I went inside and made myself a sandwich for lunch. Turkey and Swiss on wheat bread. I ate it at the kitchen table, looking at the list I had started on a piece of paper. 1. Revoke POA. Done. 2. Contact realtor. 3. Open new bank account. 4. Change will. It was a short list, but each item was a mountain. I had climbed the first one. My phone had 5 missed calls from Michael and 3 from Susan. There were a string of text messages. Mom, where are you? Are you okay? You're not answering. Hattie, this isn't funny. Please call us. We're getting worried. I read them all. I felt nothing. It was like reading a weather report for a country I would never visit. I picked up the phone. I opened Michael's contact. I looked at the picture of him with his arm around Susan, both of them smiling widely on a beach somewhere. They looked happy. They looked untroubled. I pressed the button. Block. I did the same for Susan. Then I deleted the call log and the messages. I wiped the slate clean. The silence that followed was profound. It was my silence. I owned it. That afternoon, a woman from a real estate agency came to the house. Her name was Angela. She was young, energetic, and wore a bright yellow suit. She walked through my house with a clipboard, making notes. Great bones, she said, tapping a wall in the living room. Original hardwood floors. This will sell fast. The market is hot right now. She did not see the scratch on the floor where Michael had dropped his toy truck in 1985. She did not see the faint water stain on the ceiling from the time James had left the bath running when he was watching the World Series. She saw square footage and property values. It was better that way. It made it easier. We'll need to stage it, of course, she said, looking at my comfortable, worn furniture with a critical eye. Declutter. Neutralize. Make it a blank canvas so buyers can imagine themselves here, a blank canvas. The idea appealed to me. Wiping away the past. Starting fresh. I agreed to everything. That evening, Imani came over. She knocked on the door softly. I had called her back and asked her to come. I knew her parents would have called her, would have tried to use her as a way to get to me. When I opened the door, her face was a mess of worry. Grandma, Dad said you weren't answering. I was so scared. She hugged me, and it was a real hug. Solid and warm. I'm fine, baby, I said, stroking her hair. Just fine. Come in. I made sweet tea. We sat at the kitchen table. I watched her as she drank her tea. She was 22, in her last year of college, studying to be a social worker. She had a good heart. A kind heart. James had adored her. Dad is losing his mind, she said, setting her glass down. He says you've blocked his number. I have, I said calmly. She looked at me, her dark eyes searching my face. Why? What happened? I did not tell her everything. I did not want to put that weight on her, to force her to choose a side between her father and her grandmother. But I told her enough. They think I am no longer capable of living my own life, I said. They are making plans for me. Plans I do not agree with. Imani's face hardened. A look of understanding and something else, a familiar anger, passed through her eyes. Silver maples, she said. It was not a question. I just nodded. She shook her head, a slow, sad movement. I heard them talking about it at Christmas. I told them it was a horrible idea. I told them you were fine. Dad said I was being sentimental. Mom said it was about logistics. She said the word logistics as if it tasted foul. And there it was. Validation. A witness. I had not been imagining the slights, the dismissals. Someone else had seen them too. It is not their decision to make, I said. No, she agreed, her voice quiet but fierce. It's not. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her hand was young and strong. What are you going to do, Grandma? I squeezed her hand. I am going to live my life, I said. My own way. On my own terms. I did not tell her about selling the house. Not yet. It was too soon. But I saw in her eyes that she would support me. She was my blood. But more than that, she was my friend. The next few weeks were a blur of methodical action. I went to the bank. A different branch from the one I usually used. I sat with a young man named Mr. Henderson who had a kind smile and did not treat me like I was senile. I opened a new checking and savings account. I moved the majority of my money into them. All the money from my certificates of deposit, the money James and I had saved for our old age. I left only a small amount in the joint account I shared with Michael, the one he used to help me pay my bills. Enough to cover the utilities for another month or two. After that, the well would be dry. The realtor, Angela, put a for sale sign in my front yard. It was a jarring sight. A bright red slash against the familiar green of my lawn. The phone call started again, this time to the landline. I had forgotten they had that number. I let the machine pick them up. Michael's voice, tight with anger. Susan's, dripping with false concern. Mom, a for sale sign? What on earth is going on? You have to call me back. This is insane. Hattie, we are worried sick. Are you being scammed? Did someone convince you to do this? Please let us help you. I would listen to the messages in the evening, sitting in James's armchair. I would listen and then I would press delete. It was a cleansing ritual. The hardest part was the house. The decluttering. Angela had sent a team of people, but I sent them away. This was my job. My history. I would be the one to pack it up. I started in the attic. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light from the bare bulb. It smelled of cedar and thyme. I found my wedding dress, carefully preserved in a box. I found Michael's old-school report cards, his childish scrawl praising his progress in arithmetic. I found a box of letters James had sent me from his army base before we were married. I did not read the letters. I could not. It was too much. I sorted everything into 3 piles. Keep, donate, discard. The keep pile was small. Photographs. The family Bible. My grandmother's quilt. James's letters. A few of Michael's baby things. A tiny pair of bronze shoes. A lock of blonde hair from his first haircut. I packed these into a single sturdy box. The donate pile was large. Old clothes, dishes, furniture, books, a lifetime of accumulation. The discard pile was for the things that were truly broken, the things that held only pain. I did not put much there. I am not a wasteful woman. One afternoon, while I was sorting through a box of old photo albums, there was a loud knock on the door. Not a knock. A banging. I knew who it was. I took a deep breath. I smoothed my apron. I walked to the door and opened it. Michael and Susan stood on my porch. They looked frantic. Michael's face was red. Susan's was pale. Mom, Michael said, his voice a raw nerve. What is going on? Why have you been ignoring us? He tried to step inside, but I did not move. I stood my ground on the threshold. James had carried me over. I have not been ignoring you, Michael, I said. My voice was calm. It felt like it belonged to someone else, a woman made of steel. I have been busy. Busy? You're selling the house. Our house. he exclaimed. It is my house, Michael. I corrected him gently. And yes, I am selling it. You can't. Susan chimed in, her voice shrill. This is your home. All your memories are here. My memories are not in the walls, I said. They are in here, I tapped my temple. And I am taking them with me. Where? Michael demanded. Where are you going? To some apartment? Mom, you can't live alone anymore. We've been over this. It's not safe. We found a wonderful place for you. Susan added, trying to sound reasonable, trying to sound kind. Silver Maples. It has a waiting list, but we can get you in. It's for the best. There it was. The cage. They were offering me the cage again, as if it were a gift. I looked at my son. I really looked at him. I saw the man he had become. A man who saw his mother as a problem to be solved, a line item on his list of responsibilities. I saw the impatience in his eyes, the frustration. I did not see love. I saw duty, a heavy sighing kind of duty. I am not going to Silver Maples, I said. The words were quiet, but they landed in the space between us with the force of a gavel. Then what is all this about? Michael's voice rose. Is this about money? Are you trying to punish us for something? And in that moment I understood. They could not conceive of a reason for my actions that did not revolve around them. It could not be about what I wanted for myself. It had to be a reaction to them. Punishment. A manipulation. They saw my independence as an attack. A great sadness washed over me, but it was a distant sadness. It was like watching a ship sink on a far horizon. This has nothing to do with punishing you, Michael, I said. This has to do with me living the life I have left. I overheard you, at your house. In the kitchen, Susan's face went white. Michael had the decency to look ashamed, for a fleeting second. You were talking about putting me away. I continued, my voice still calm. Like an old piece of furniture you no longer have room for. You were discussing it as a matter of logistics, of convenience. Your convenience, not my life. Mom, it wasn't like that, Michael started, but his words were weak, hollow. It was exactly like that, I said. I heard every word. And in that moment I understood. I have been waiting for you to need me, waiting for you to see me, waiting to be a part of your lives. And I realize that you are waiting for me to be gone, so you can have the house, the money, the inheritance. That's not true. Susan gasped, clutching her pearls. It was pure theater. Isn't it? I asked, my eyes fixed on my son. You have been spending my money in your heads for years, planning what you'll do with it. A new car for Susan, a trip to Europe, an addition on your house. Michael was silent. He could not meet my gaze. Well, I said, and I allowed myself a small wry smile. I have decided to spend it myself. I have worked my entire life. I have saved. I have done without. And I am not going to spend my final years in a place you have chosen for me, waiting to die. I am going to live. I opened the screen door just enough to step back inside my house. Where are you going? Michael asked, his voice cracking. There was fear in it now. The fear of losing control. The fear of his inheritance slipping through his fingers. I turned to look at him one last time. He looked like a stranger to me. Somewhere with a view of the ocean, I said. I have always wanted to live by the sea, and then I closed the door. Gently. I did not slam it. I simply closed it and I turned the lock. The click was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The house sold in 4 days. Angela called me, breathless with excitement. A cash offer, Hattie. 20% over asking. They waived the inspection. It's a young couple, they love the neighborhood. A cash offer. It was clean. It was fast. I accept, I said, without a moment's hesitation. The closing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Suddenly everything was moving at a dizzying speed. I had to be out of my home of 52 years in 14 days. I hired a moving company. I told them to take everything in the donate pile to the local church thrift store. The rest, the discard pile, they took to the dump. I watched the truck pull away, filled with the physical substance of my life. A floral sofa, a chipped dining table, lamps and rugs and mismatched chairs. I felt a pang of loss, but it was quickly replaced by a feeling of lightness. I was unburdened. Imani helped me pack the last few boxes. The ones marked keep she worked quietly, wrapping each photograph in tissue paper with careful hands. "Have you found a place yet, Grandma?" she asked, not looking at me. "I have," I said. "I've been looking online. It's a small cottage. On the coast. About 3 hours from here." "By yourself?" "By myself," I confirmed. "It has a porch. And you can hear the ocean from the bedroom window." She finally looked at me, and her eyes were shining with tears. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Those 4 words were worth more to me than all the money in the bank. They were a bomb on a wound I hadn't even known was still open. The day before the closing, I went to Mr. Davies's office one last time. I had thought long and hard about my will. I sat across from him, the new document on the desk between us. "Are you sure about this, Mrs. Johnson?" he asked gently. "It is a significant change. I am more sure of this than I have been of anything in a very long time," I said. The new will was simple. I left a small specific amount to my church. I left another sum to the community shelter for women and children. The rest of my estate, the proceeds from the sale of the house, my savings, my investments, everything, I left in a trust for my granddaughter Imani. With one condition. The money was to be used for her education and to help her start her life. None of it was to be given to her parents. Ever. I signed the papers. 2 witnesses were called in. They signed. Mr. Davies notarized it. It was done. The inheritance was no longer a promise. It was a gift freely given to the one person who had seen me, not as a burden but as a person. My last night in the house was strange. It was completely empty. The rooms echoed with every footstep. The walls were bare, with pale rectangles where pictures had hung for decades. It was no longer my home. It was just a house. A shell. I didn't sleep in my bed. The movers had already taken it. I slept on the floor in a sleeping bag Imani had brought me, with my grandmother's quilt for warmth. I lay awake for a long time, listening to the sounds of the house settling. I thought of James. I wondered what he would think of all this. I think he would have been sad about the house. But I know he would have understood. He always told me, "Your spirit is too big to be kept in a box." Hattie Silver Maples was a box. My son's expectations were a box. This empty house had become a box. I was breaking free. The next morning I went to the closing. Michael and Susan were not there. Their names were not on the deed. It was just me and the young couple buying the house. They were so excited. Their eyes were bright with dreams of the future they would build within these walls. I smiled at them. "I hope you'll be very happy here," I said. And I meant it. I signed the last of the papers. The title agent slid a check across the table to me. It was for an amount of money that seemed impossibly large. The sum total of a life's work, a life's savings, a life's home. I put the check in my purse. I stood up. I shook hands with everyone. And then I walked out into the sunshine. I did not look back at the house. I drove straight to the bank and deposited the check into my new account. Then I drove to my new life. The highway stretched out before me, a gray ribbon unfurling toward the horizon. I turned on the radio. Sam Cooke was singing. "A change is gonna come," I sang along. My voice was rusty, but it was strong. 3 hours later I saw it. The first glimpse of the ocean. A brilliant, shimmering blue line at the edge of the world. My heart gave a leap. My cottage was small, just as the pictures had shown. It was painted a cheerful color, like a seashell. It had white trim and a small porch with a rocking chair already on it. The realtor I had worked with remotely had left the key under the mat. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. It smelled of salt and fresh paint. The floors were a light-colored wood. The furniture I had ordered online was already there, simple and comfortable. A sofa, a small dining table, a bed. A blank canvas. I walked through the small house, my house, until I reached the back. There was a sliding glass door that led out to a small deck. And beyond it there was the beach. And beyond the beach there was the ocean. The sound was immense. A constant rhythmic shushing of waves on sand. It was the sound of breathing. The world breathing. I slid the door open and stepped out onto the deck. The wind whipped my hair. The air was thick with the smell of salt and sea. I took a deep, deep breath. It felt like the first real breath I had taken in 20 years. I had done it. I was here. My new phone with a new number that only Imani and Mr. Davies had, buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Imani. "Are you there, Grandma? Are you safe?" I smiled. I typed back a reply. "I am. It's beautiful. I can hear the ocean from my window." I stayed on that deck for hours watching the sun go down. It sank into the water, setting the sky on fire with colors that reminded me of my old rug. Red and orange and deep, deep blue. I was not lonely. I was not afraid. I was free. The days that followed settled into a new rhythm. A rhythm set not by a clock but by the tides. I woke with the sun. I would make myself a cup of chicory coffee and take it out to the porch. I would sit in the rocking chair and watch the ocean wake up. The colors would shift from gray to pink to a brilliant, dazzling blue. Pelicans would fly past in a straight, determined line. I took long walks on the beach. First just short ones. My city legs were not used to walking on sand, but day by day I got stronger. I would walk for miles collecting shells and sea glass. The cold water would rush over my bare feet. Felt like a baptism. I bought a straw hat and a pair of sunglasses. I bought a book of local birds and learned their names. Sandpiper, tern, egret. I found a small grocery store in the nearby town. I bought fresh fish and vegetables. I started cooking again for myself. Simple meals. Broiled flounder with lemon. A big salad. I ate what I wanted when I wanted. I discovered I loved pineapple. I had never known. I set up my new home. I hung the few pictures I had kept. James and me on our wedding day. Imani's college graduation photo. A picture of my parents stern and proud. I put the family Bible on the small mantelpiece. I draped my grandmother's quilt over the back of the sofa. It was a small space, but it was filled only with things that brought me joy. There were no ghosts here. No expectations. No disappointments. One day a letter arrived. It had been forwarded from my old address. The handwriting on the envelope was Michael's. I held it in my hands for a long time. I almost threw it away unopened, but that felt like cowardice. I was not a coward. I sat on my porch with the sound of the waves as my companion, and I opened it. It was long. For pages. He wrote about his childhood, about how I was always there. He wrote that he was sorry. He wrote that he and Susan had been scared. They didn't know how to handle me getting older. He wrote that he knew he had made a mistake. Terrible mistake. He wrote that he missed me. He asked if he could see me. He asked for my new address. I read the letter twice. The words were the right words, but I could feel the truth beneath them. He was sorry he had been caught. He was sorry he had lost control. He was sorry his inheritance was gone. Was he sorry for the hurt? For the years of making me feel invisible? I did not know. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I did not answer it. Not yet. Maybe one day. Forgiveness is a complicated thing. It is a journey, not a destination. And I was just at the beginning of my new path. The door was not locked and bolted, but it was no longer wide open. He would have to earn the right to knock on it. Imani came to visit on a weekend. She drove the 3 hours by herself. When she saw my little cottage, her face lit up. "Grandma, it's perfect," she said. We walked on the beach. We cooked dinner together. We sat on the deck and talked until the stars came out. She told me about her classes, about a young man she was dating. I told her about the birds I had seen, about the funny old man who ran the local bookstore. "Dad is different," she said, her voice soft. "Quieter. Sadder. He keeps your letter on his desk." "I see," I said. "He messed up, Grandma." "I know he did. Mom too. They got so caught up in their own lives they forgot you had one of your own." "Yes," I said. "They did. We did not speak of it again. We did not need to." That night, as I lay in my bed, listening to the ocean, I felt a sense of peace so profound it was almost a physical presence in the room. It was the peace of a clean conscience. The peace of a life lived on one's own terms. I had not acted out of revenge. I had not acted out of spite. I had acted out of a deep, primal need for self-preservation. Not the preservation of my body, but the preservation of my soul. My dignity. They had tried to write the last chapter of my story. They had already decided on the ending. A quiet, managed decline in a safe, sterile room. But I had taken the book from their hands. I had taken back the pen, and I was writing a new ending. An ending filled with sunlight and salt air, and the magnificent endless roar of the sea. An ending that was all my own. I am Hattie Johnson. I am 82 years old, and for the first time in a long time I am truly deeply gloriously alive. My story is not over. It has just begun, and the view from my window is beautiful.